By now, I'm sure that most of you have noticed activists of various left wing factions blocking bridges, blocking streets, blocking roads. And you gotta wonder, like, why do they do this? Like, do they actually believe that, let's say, someone who is against the environment gets blocked on a bridge on his way to work, and all of a sudden, as he is sitting there getting blocked by those chuckleheads, he goes, you know what? Maybe they do have a point, but maybe I need to start turning off my air conditioning. Maybe I should sell my gaming PC and stop polluting. Like, how likely is it that that actually happens? And another question has to be, why is it that it's predominantly left-wing activists that do it? And they're of various factions, of course, whether it's environmentalism, BLM, Free Palestine. It's almost exclusively left-leaning people. Like, you do not see MAGA supporters that took umbrage with the 2020 election stopping bridges. And also, another interesting question is, why is it happening almost exclusively in the United States and Western Europe? You rarely, if ever, see these tactics taking place in Poland, Romania, Bulgaria. And in order to answer that, you gotta understand why the tactic is actually taking place. Obviously, it's not to convince the people in the car or on the bridges about the fact that the activists are right and they are wrong. Like, in fact, when it comes to environmentalism or when it comes to the Free Palestine thing, there may be people within those cars that have to go to work and they are stopped by those chuckleheads, even though they agree with the cause itself. Like, Greta Thunberg one day may actually be stopped as she is on a bridge by some environmentalist activists. I'm pretty sure they would let her go just because she's Greta Thunberg. But, like, the idea is there, right? Like, even if you support them, you can get stopped. So the question is, why are they stopping? It's not to convince the people in the car. It is to convince the media. Like, all of this is a shit show for the mainstream media. It's to drive the conversation, as the left likes to say it. And because they know that the media is sympathetic to their causes, they know that the conversation is going to be driven their way. This is why you don't see right-wingers doing the same protests. It's because if they were to do it, the media would never side with them. A perfect example is during the pandemic. During the very early stages of the lockdowns, you had 10 or maybe 20 people that were right-wing, and they opened carried on the steps of the Capitol building. They just sat there in silence in order to show their protests to the lockdowns. And the media immediately branded them as terrorists. They branded them as a danger to the public, that they're spreading the illness, they're spreading the disease by violating the lockdowns, that what they are doing is completely unacceptable. And a couple of weeks later, you have the BLM protests. And it's the same thing. You have people going out protesting, right, during the lockdowns. And the media was like, no, everyone should do what they're doing because they're fighting for civil rights. So all of a sudden, they didn't care about the spread of disease. They didn't care about the health safety. It's because the media is left-leaning, at least in the United States. So this is why you don't see these types of protests done by right-wingers or done in Eastern Europe. They have tried doing this in Eastern Europe, and the mainstream media immediately said, yeah, it's unacceptable what they are doing. Even though, you know, they have a right to protest, they're not really protesting the government, they're protesting people. They have their human right of protest, but people have their human right of movement. So what they are doing is not acceptable, and I hope that the police is going to arrest them. Which is the difference in mentality, I guess, between Western Europe and Eastern Europe. Because in Western Europe, if you have members from the public, like let's say a driver, roughing up these individuals, or the police comes up and arrests them, opinion is usually divided, and a lot of people are going to side with the protesters, and they're going to say, well, why are you roughing them up? Like, they have their human right of protesting. It's a peaceful protest. What are you doing? Meanwhile, here in Eastern Europe, it's like, well, serves them right. Why did they block the roads? Like, there's people that try to get to their workplace. There are people that are trying to go about their day. I wouldn't like having my road blocked by someone, even if I agree with them. Why are they doing this? They should be punished. And because of this difference in mentality, this type of protest doesn't happen in Eastern Europe almost at all, while it's happening very often in Western Europe. And finally, it's the oxymoron, right? It's like queers for Palestine. Like none of those queers would actually travel to Palestine because it's unsafe. So the question is, why do they do it? First of all, they may genuinely not know what they're protesting or talking about. There have been many cases where a microphone was placed in front of these protesters, and they were asked, you're chanting from the river to the sea, which river, which sea? And then unironically didn't know how to answer. They know nothing about the Islamic world. They know nothing about the Islamic faith outside of what their university professors are telling them or the Western Muslims that they interact with in the United States. So they genuinely think that, well, queers for Palestine makes sense because Palestine is oppressed, and if they help Palestine, then Palestine will like them in return and hopefully return the favor in their great struggle against Western imperialism and capitalism. It's completely wishful thinking. I suppose it's something that's brewed on the benches of academia, completely disconnected from reality. But it's also trying to create the illusion that this is a huge, grand, colossal coalition against, as I said before, the imperialist capitalism, right? It's like everyone is there. You got the queers, you got Black Lives Matter, you got literally almost everyone around the world. Like it's this huge coalition of these people that have so much in common, when in fact it's not even a political bloc. It's just an artificial thing that's created in order to generate this illusion, right? Because if you look at it, you now see Greta Thunberg attending these Free Palestine movements. And it's like, well, okay, so Greta Thunberg, now that she saved environmentalism, is moving towards creating everlasting peace in the Middle East. Like she's like this messianic Jesus figure that just fixes one problem of the world and then moves on to another. But again, in reality, what all of these things have together, if you look at it, is to try to get left-leaning politicians into power and maintain power. All of these protests are done in order to radicalize people, in order for them to network with other people. I'm willing to bet that some of these protests are even done so that they can see how effective they are at shutting down roadways, how effective they are at preventing law enforcement from arriving during a riot. Because if you guys looked at the BLM stuff during the riots of 2020, they were incredibly effective at shutting down entire streets and making sure that the authorities don't arrive on time. There was a lot of preparation that was put before the protest happens. And you have left-leaning activists as well as left-leaning literature, which literally talks about this. They discuss that when the left protests, they need to be proactive rather than reactive. So in order to be proactive, they have to train how to protest, how to do these tactics, so that when the protest actually does happen, they're already prepared. Being reactive is basically waiting for something to happen and people just spontaneously go out and they do their protest and then they go back in. Not as effective as if people are already trained into the art of protesting. So this can also be like, I guess, like practice, if you will. And it's also to show the conviction to the cause. I mean, going out there in the middle of the street, blocking traffic, getting all these insults from your fellow citizens, risk getting arrested, risk actually encountering someone that's mad enough in order to rough up a protester. It takes a lot of conviction. So they genuinely show to their peers, it's like, look, I am that convicted in the cause that I'm actually willing to do this. So they probably do get respect amongst their peers for doing that. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. And if you like the channel, I will remind you that I do have a subscribe star into the pinned comment section. And there is also a link to my livestream channel, where if you sign up, you will get to see the new Week in Stupid, which I host every Sunday. So hopefully I will see you guys there. Take care.